Welcome to Code Savvy Presents, a podcast about computer science, technology, accessibility, and inclusion. So thank you both for being here today to kick us off. And if you could, can you introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there?
I can go first. So Jaqueline Sullivan, but everyone knows me around here as Jackie. And I am Vice President, Security Operations Coordination for US Bank. And myself and Karen, and you'll hear more about Karen's side of the house, we work for Information Security Services, which is the cybersecurity shop for US Bank. And our area, we support the area, which is 24/7, 365 operations, where we are protecting the bank all the time from all the threats that may come our way from a cybersecurity perspective. And so my role is specifically on providing operational support. You're thinking about metrics, you're thinking about strategy. I'm helping our leaders to make decisions around how they expend people, processes, technology, changes that need to happen, and those sorts of things. And I've been with US Bank for about 7 years so far, which is the longest I've been with any company or organization ever. And I found myself here coming from US federal government. And so the agency called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency is where I came from. And there, one of the big things that I did there was manage the federal virtual training environment, which provided cybersecurity training across the federal government for all the government employees, as far as from a technical perspective. So that's a little bit, I could go on and on and on and talk about a lot of stuff, but that's me in a nutshell.
For a little bit, that's a huge little bit. So big accomplishments. So thank you for being here. How about you, Karen?
My name is Karen Winkler, and I've been with US Bank for 14 years. Currently, I work with Jackie in SecOps. I manage a team of security engineers, and we support the tools, the security tools that are used by the SOC, the CERT, and other protection groups in US Bank. I came to US Bank from another company. Let's see, what was I doing before this? It's been a long time. It was medical devices, and I was running the database group. It was wonderful. I loved that job. I was hired into US Bank to work as an infrastructure, what was it called? It was an infrastructure person, so I would help project manage the infrastructure for applications that were being built and stood up, and I was the project manager for that. I got into security because I was project managing the infrastructure for some security devices, and I got to know a lot of the groups doing that work, and I loved it. It was very fast-paced. It was all of the new technology stuff, and I started looking for jobs, and when I found one, I applied. I applied for everything. It was wonderful, and I got hired. I was thrilled.
How big is your team there for you? I'm imagining, 24/7, 365. You probably have a pretty substantial team. How many people are you kind of in your department?
So when we're talking about the entire cybersecurity shop, there's probably over 1,000 when you're counting, including contractors. But I think we're hover around the 800 or so folks. And then when you focus on security operations, so the area that we're hands on the keyboard folks and engineers as well, that's about 200 when you count contractors, and then probably about 130 or so full-time employees. So it is a huge operation.
Yeah, that's well, and it has to be, right? Because you're dealing with very sensitive and very important data to protect. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about people who might be interested in cybersecurity as a career. What would some of the skills be that you would want to see in a candidate? Somebody that you feel would be a successful cybersecurity operations person.
Well, I was going to say someone who is curious, especially someone who thinks of themselves as a data detective. If they keep looking and looking and they want to get to the bottom of a problem or an issue and they can't let it go, those are the kind of people I think that make an excellent engineer, and especially someone who works in cyber defense, because they're always looking to see what's going on and to get to the bottom of a problem or an issue or just something funny that doesn't look right. Now, after saying that, I also want to say that I recommend everybody, everyone I meet, I say you should go and you should look into cyber defense because it's so much fun. You're going to love it. Once you get a taste of it, you're just going to love it.
Yeah, that's really good. I would also add creativity. And I know this one is weird, but when you think about it, we have to have a lot of empathy because we want to think like our adversaries do. We want to think outside the box. This is not a profession for painting within the lines because our attackers, potential cyber attackers, are painting way outside the lines. And so creativity is a really big part of it. And one thing Karen mentioned, cyber defense, just to let our listeners know, in cyber, there are two sides of the house. There's the blue team and there's a red team. The blue team is those that have the defensive posture for the organization, constantly protecting. You can think of it as like holding up a shield. And then there's the red team, which are those who impersonate real attackers. And so they are the offensive side of the organization. They're not going out and hacking outside of the org, but they're hacking us in order so that we can strengthen our defenses and get real practice on what it would look like, and also to hunt for vulnerabilities. So the red team of the house is a whole other side of the house, which is also a great field for folks as well.
So what are some of the certifications or degrees or specialties that a person might need to have to help them stand out as a candidate for either the red team or the blue team?
Yeah. So just real quick, I think there are probably three big pathways. And one of those pathways would be certifications. I think it's the quickest and easiest way to get your foot in the door. Let's say you're coming from a different profession altogether or had a different or untraditional major. A certificate is something that you can highlight and flag right from the get-go. So if you already have a IT background, the first level certification would probably be Security Plus. It gives you a good baseline for security concepts. You have to think security minded. You have to understand, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and what those concepts mean and how they play out in an organization. So that's a really good baseline cert to get your foot in the door. And then from there, I think it's a good decision to pick whether you want to be more defensive minded or offensive minded. And I think that can drive your next set of certifications. I love CompTIA's, CompTIA, their certifications because they're vendor neutral. And so you can self-study, you can take a boot camp, and there tend to be some of the least expensive certifications as well. And also they have these really great pathways on their site that they kind of map it out for you. So I think those are some really good certifications, a good starter certification. I'm sure Karen has others that she'd like to suggest.
Well, I think I think even before you get to talk about certifications, which are important, I think that a very well-rounded person in computer coding or computer science is a great place to start. If you have that, then you can build on that. But I look for someone who has network experience, who understands computer logging, and who has an understanding of the way systems work together. Because like Jackie said, when you need to be creative, when you are always looking to defend your property, secure your information property against an attacker, you want to have a good understanding of the entire ecosystem that you're working in. And so I look for a very well-rounded person in computer science. On top of that, they might have a specialty, and I would look for the CISSP kind of ground level. But that is something that you can also, if you're good as a security individual, if you are looking at moving around, there are so many different types of them, and you can pick up so much on the job that sometimes the certifications come a little later. I look at a resume in entirety, not just a certification.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think to your point, I can imagine that it would be helpful to understand how to navigate through code, through, you know, the back ends of things so that you understand what you're looking at, and can know where to go and look for those threats. So that makes sense. For those of us who maybe aren't going to be in a career of cybersecurity, but are just needing to protect ourselves online as lay people, can you give any words of advice on how we can be more secure in our computing from your perspective?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that I tell people is that the tried and true is still the best method to protect yourself online. And so one of the big things right now, so we all know what a phishing message looks like. We all get them all the time. During the pandemic, just between that February and March of 2020, phishing messages increased by about 600%. Because attackers were counting on the public to be distracted and not paying attention. And there were specific lures that they could catch people with. So, new cases in your area would be a subject line. And these are real subject lines that were out there, or things about vaccine development or World Health Organization. These were all lures to get people. So I think one thing is, like, just when you're online, slow down, take a breath for a moment before you just start clicking through things. Another thing, smishing is on the rise. Smishing is short for SMS text messages. So it's basically phishing over text messages. It's a growing area right now. And I think what makes it so dangerous is because it's really difficult to recognize, because even legitimate companies, are texting us and we don't know, those aren't numbers that we're familiar with. It could be like, fill out, this survey at your local supercenter or wherever you shop, or you signed up for a marketing email and it's clicked through here and it's usually an obfuscated URL link that's been shortened and you can't see where it's going to. So smishing, I think, is a really huge threat. But I think it's really just about being a little bit more vigilant. Um, Also, unsubscribe to stuff. I think we all get too many marketing messages. The average person has over 100 different accounts that you have username, password for. Unsubscribe to stuff that you're not using, because now you're able to start to discern what's coming into your inbox more clearly. So those are just some of the big picture things that you can do personally, to protect yourself online. And there's others as well. Don't reuse the same password over and over again. Make sure that it's complex and unique. Make sure that any Wi-Fi that you're connecting to is secure. Maybe have a separate guest network for your IoT devices at your house. Those are just little things like that, but it's really just thinking about how could an attacker potentially break in. Just like you lock your front door, how can you lock the front door to your digital life?
Good point. I would like to add that I'm a huge fan of your personal VPN when you're doing anything that has finances involved. Definitely use whether you're buying something or doing online banking, use a VPN. My other suggestion is not not an electronic, not a cybersecurity one, but to have a separate credit card when you do anything online, because a credit card is not necessarily tied to your bank account. So if you're using a debit card to shop online, then and someone hacks into the network and steals your credit card and your password for what you're doing, they can immediately get to your bank account. So use a credit card because they can't get to your bank account. And when a bank, any bank, is watching your transactions, if they see something abnormal, they should get in touch with you. So those are more financial savvy stuff so that you aren't a victim of someone who is trying to execute fraud online.
No, that's a super good point, and one that I really hadn't considered, like the direct line on the debit card. But yeah, that's a good point. This is random, but how does the service like PayPal or some kind of third party payment administrator play into that? Like, does that give you an extra layer of protection from the bank account, or is that kind of more exposure because it's yet another set of passwords and things that can be corrupted?
Yeah, so there are vulnerabilities in any online transaction system. And you're right, yes, it is another thing to manage, right? And then also a key vulnerability there is account takeovers. So that's where someone, let's say there was a data breach for a company that they have your credentials, and let's say you're reusing the same username password over and over again. And so it makes it really easy for someone else to, and what happens after a breach, a lot of times those credential combinations are sold over the dark web, and other attackers can do, and they reuse and resell these lists over and over again, and perpetuate other attacks. And so let's say you were, use the same password on your top 10 accounts that everyone has. Everyone has an Amazon account. Everyone has a PayPal account. Everyone might have an eBay. And so attackers know this too. These are the top 10, 20, 30 sites. And in an automated way can ping all these sites to see if they can make a way through. So I think it's inevitable, like with peer-to-peer transactions, whether it's Zelle, whether it's PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, we all use it. But what's important, I think, is number one is have really strong protections there. Um, a lot of times, if you look in the settings for a lot of these apps, you can turn on things that may not come as default. So an example could be like receive an alert every time a transaction occurs on your account. Or whenever a password is changed, you get an automatic text. If you have the option for multi-factor or two-factor authentication, yes, it can be overcame. There's been experiments to show that attackers can break through multi-factor authentication. However, it will slow an attacker down. And so it's almost like a robber who was walking down the street to jiggle doorknobs to see what door was open. When you have that extra thing, that extra layer of security, it acts as a deterrent.
They may just move on and
They
go
just
to
move
somebody
on
that's
to
easier.
an easier target.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes
Exactly.
sense. Um, I what are some of the innovations or like new things that are happening in cybersecurity that you all get excited about? Anything that is kind of on the horizon that you're waiting for?
Technology-wise or human-wise?
Either or both. Both.
Well, I am very excited. I'm fairly people-centric, so I always like go to people. I'm very excited of all of the programs that are being created because we need more security professionals. So I'm very excited to see more companies trying to solve that problem with universities and colleges by creating programs to lower the cost of getting this education and for entering the marketplace. Cyber defense and information security has always had a fairly low bar. Well, I would say not necessarily security, but computer science has had a fairly low bar because people could learn a lot at home by doing. And if you could show people that you knew how to work on a computer, you could get into your initial job and keep learning on the job. And that was a great way to get into something and then keep learning and getting an education. But now, because there is such a huge need for security professionals, many companies that hire hundreds of people are starting to create their own programs with universities that are in some of the major metropolitan areas. And I'm very excited about that.
You took a really positive turn there, Karen. I really like your answer.
Didn't mean to be that positive.
I love it. I was actually going to talk about like some of the weird and crazy stuff that I'm seeing on the side of attacks. So for me, I don't know if you all have been following some of the progression of AI and machine learning. And there's some really creepy things happening right now.
Oh my gosh, you are so right. You are so, yes, I did take a more positive bent on.
Well, you know, we need to have both. We need to have both sides. So that's awesome.
Right. But there's a TED talk out there about how some scientists replicated famous people saying things that they really actually didn't say. But just imagine, and this is on video, not just audio, but video, using crowdsourcing together existing video that's out there on the internet. So imagine that technology in the hands of an attacker, right? And so I think the positive side of it is that there are people that are looking at this and protections, because it's cool technology. You know, I've seen where it was used for bringing Holocaust survivors' stories to life using AI. That's some really cool things when you think about applications like that in education and interactive displays and at museums and things like that. But just imagine that technology in bad hands, and it already has started. There was a report about this kidnapping attempt where a woman's voice was used to target her father, who thought it was her because this technology was readily available, and it's still in its infancy, but I'm really concerned about that. So I would love to see more and more people think about the ethics surrounding new technology and around innovation, and like how do we put safeguards and controls in there so it doesn't turn into like Terminator Salvation one day, where
right.
we're at the behest of computers.
Yeah, with any technology, like it can be used for good or evil, right? And so it's like, how do you convince more people to be on the good side? But yeah, that deep fake technology is real. There's a couple of really famous actors that have been in the news recently for selling their likeness or licensing their likeness. I think the Darth Vader voice, what was his name?
Yes.
Joel Jones.
Yes, he just licensed his voice so that Disney could use that with that deep fake technology to keep that industry going for as long as they can. So like you said, it's both sides, but very scary to think about what could happen with that. You know, you have the email scams where they'd say, or a phone call scam where they say your granddaughter has been in this accident and we need money. Well, now they could just have her voice, right? Like that's
Exactly.
a real threat.
Mm-hmm.
So
And actually, that happened to me. I got a random call from my father who said, "Where is your son?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, he's in the other room, right? It should be, right? And he said, "I just got a call that said, hey, Grandpa, I need you to bail me out of jail." So, I mean, just think about it. Like, this is really touching everybody. And that was a very unsophisticated attack. But just imagine, videos where in a world we can't really trust what we're seeing or hearing. So,
right.
yeah.
And the just one other side note, Scott Adams, the guy who does Dilbert cartoons, there's an AI company that did his likeness, took videos of him and his voice, and they created these video clips of him saying things that he's never said. And
Wow.
he even said himself he couldn't tell the difference. Like there was
Wow.
nothing in it that was a trigger to him, that he wouldn't have known that it wasn't him saying those things. So it's getting more and more real as we go, and it'll be more and more important for people to know how to spot any kind
Mhm.
of inconsistencies, or it's really going to come down to like, how well do you know that person, and would they actually say something like that? And
Yeah,
it's hard to do, if it's a public figure or something like that, that could have real implications in the world.
that's so true. This is another old school tactic. So when I was a little girl, I had a secret password. Did you all used to do that with your parents
Oh
where
yes.
like
For
if
Oh
sure.
something,
yes.
Yep.
yeah, if something happened and someone had to pick you up, here's the secret password. Well, families are starting to reinstitute that concept even for adults. Like, this is our family password. No one outside our circle knows what it is. This is our secret password. So I have this challenge question basically that I can ask my family members, and we all know what the answer is, and I can confirm if this is really you or not. So, I mean, this is the world we're living in. But like I said, again, sometimes the old school methods are still valid today. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. However we can stay safe.
exactly.
Well, Jackie, you brought up in your last few comments, you brought up something I wanted to touch on again, and that was the human factor of a lot of these crimes, especially where money is concerned. They will try to convince you through different methods that you're talking to someone who has their best interest at heart.
Mhm.
And whether it is an email or an SMS text message, or even if you're standing in line, not so much anymore, buying something in a store or in a bank or at an ATM, right? You always have to be aware of the people around you and how they're interacting with you, because a lot of times there is a human factor involved in the end. Whoever the bad guy is trying to use something emotionally to help them get what they want, which is your money a lot of times.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And there's a whole field. It's called social engineering, right? It's
Mhm.
about how can I get and manipulate people using psychological techniques and also deception to get what I want. And most times it is money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a huge motivator for
Yep.
Yep.
people. So
Yeah.
let's move to a little lighter topic.
Okay.
I'm wondering, in your industry, being women in cybersecurity, uh, are there any kind of affinity groups or things that you participate in that you have found helpful in your career, to kind of keep you motivated and engaged in your field?
I like to join WLIT, Women Leading in Technology, locally in the Twin Cities area. Um, and I also like to mentor with groups that help young women learn coding. And that that usually introduces me to other women in technology. And you don't always have to be considered a leader, right? Because a lot of people that work in technology, do coding, aren't necessarily managers or directors. But that mentoring with other groups, I'm always meeting other women in technology through that.
Yeah, and to Karen, Karen is huge on mentoring. And something that I actually learned from Karen is you don't have to be super advanced in your career to be able to share something with someone else that would be valuable. And so you can be early in your career and mentoring someone else who doesn't have the same skill set that you have. So that's something I learned personally from Karen. And the other thing I like to add is the value of friendships at work. And so Karen is my
Yes.
work friend.
Never met in person.
Never met in person. And, we both are, well, I'm a fully remote employee. And so, yes, those interactions are not, are far and few between. And so, the fact that now I have a friend, I have someone I can do a coffee chat with over Teams, Microsoft Teams, or to holler or say, hey, gut check here, or ask a question. So never underestimate the power of work friendships. I think it's really important to do that for yourself, but then also to be a friend to someone else.
Yeah, it's a super great point,
Claps.
and hard to replicate in the remote world. So it's good
It
to
is.
find ways to connect and do that as much as we can. Um, so that's awesome. I guess lastly, my last question for you all is you can shamelessly promote anything US Bank has going on. If there's any initiatives that the public should know about, or things that we might be able to get involved with or help you all out in any way. Anything like that going on?
Yeah, so US Bank has had a long-term relationship with the Girl Scouts of Western Ohio. So our our Global Security Operations Center is actually based in Cincinnati. And so we have this beautiful physical space where we bring uh, Girl Scouts into the space and host them in order to complete their cybersecurity badge and earn it. And so that's been something that's been going on for a really, really long time. US Bank employees volunteer to deliver um, those those activities. So that's been a lot of fun. We also have a lot of long-term relationships with some academic partners, and year to year we give scholarships, and we also have a early um, career development program. We are in the uh, we've already so first round of selections have been made, but it's coming, and so just something to look out for in the future. Just keep checking back at usbank.com/careers, where you can, if you use the search for security, a lot of the security roles will pop up. And then there's also, every year we hire interns as well. And so that's a really great opportunity to get your foot in the door. If you're just even interested in security, I think that's a really great way to get your foot in the door.
I love
How
that
about
you
you,
mentioned the
Karen?
Girl Scouts. I love that you mentioned the Girl Scouts because US Bank and the cyber defense area actually helped the Girl Scouts create a new badge for that.
That is
So there
really
wasn't
cool.
one. There wasn't one before that. And a few people on my team actually helped with that. I'm very proud of them for doing that, developing the content, right, to teach the girls, and it's very fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun for the girls to participate in, and I'm very proud of us for that.
Yeah, my wheels are turning on how we might connect with the Girl Scouts here in the Twin
Oh
Cities, and
yes,
maybe help Code
I
Savvy and
know.
them can help go through get those badges.
Exactly. Right.
That's awesome.
I will also shamelessly plug the fact that US Bank is a great sponsor of Code Savvy here in Minnesota. And they help sponsor our Technovation Challenge, where we have the girls come in, they build their apps, and then they get to pitch to the C-suite there at US Bank. So it's been very awesome working with them.
Very rewarding.
Yes.
Very rewarding work.
Yes. So. Well, I just want to thank you both for taking time out of your super busy 24/7, 365 security days to come and talk to me about this. And I really, it's been great. And thank you for the work that you do to help keep us and our money safe. So.
Thank you. It's been very nice talking to you today, too. And Jackie, nice to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you too. And thank you, Valerie and Code Savvy. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank
you. Code Savvy Presents is produced by Code Savvy, a 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to making computer science accessible. Visit us at www.codesavvy.org.